morning. I'd like to call to order the Board of County Commission's zoning meeting this morning. Today is September 21st. You could please stand and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, everybody silence their cell phones, and thank you for being here. And we also have our hearing examiners here this morning, so thank you for being here. Staff, first case.
Good morning, Commissioners. Adam Mendez, Senior Planner with the Zoning Section. The case before you is DCI 2021-7, Burnt Store Marina. The property's address is 3090 through 3200 Matacumbe Key Road and is located in the Burnt Store Marina community. The request is to rezone approximately 9 acres from marine commercial to commercial plan development to permit the redevelopment of the existing Burnt Store Marina. The hearing examiner's recommendation is approval and is subject to conditions, and there were no hearing participants of record. Staff and the applicant are available for any questions.
Thank you. Staff, any questions for staff at this time?
None for me.
Would the applicant wish to address the board?
Good morning, Matthew Spieth, professional engineer. Just wanted to clarify quickly for the board to the intent of this CPD was purely for the construction of the 3 small buildings that are on site and a setback of one of the racks for the boats on site. The reason for this is that the reason we had to go through the CPD process and didn't maintain in the commercial marine that already existed was that this is part of the Burnt Store Marina Village District. So per what's outlined in the comprehensive plan, any construction of any buildings within the limits of the site would require us to come through the CPD process. Otherwise, we would have, this would have been constructed purely through normal means under the existing commercial marine zoning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? No participants of the record. We'll come back to the board for action.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. We have a second from Commissioner Greenwell. Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion is carried. Thank you. Next case.
Good morning. The second case before you today is DCI 2022-16. It's the Lee Health Metro Medical Park. The case seeks to rezone 2 commercial planned developments into a single planned development to add 18 acres to the existing Gulf Coast Medical Center, allowing a total of 750 beds and 170,000 square feet of commercial uses. There were no participants of record, and the hearing examiner recommended approval with conditions. Staff and the applicant are here with any questions you may have.
Any questions this time for the staff regarding this case? Would the applicant wish to address the board? Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Mark Abellini, not Abellini Hart Law Firm, on behalf of Lee Memorial Health System. As you heard on the request description, this is to expand the Gulf Coast Medical Center campus, adding the acreage from the CPD to the south that was for general commercial uses as part of the Lee Memorial campus. We support the hearing examiner's condition and recommendations of approval and the conditions and have no objection to any of that. The request complies with the Lee plan and it complies with the applicable standards for this approval as we demonstrated before the hearing examiner. We have the development team who testified before the hearing examiner here today to answer any questions from Morris DePue and Associates and David Plummer and Associates. And with that, we'd request approval, and once again, we're here to answer any questions, address any issues. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant at this time? No. Thank you. Pass on the board. Thank you for Lee Health for expanding the area, so thank you for that. There are no participants in the record. We'll come back to the board for an action.
Gladly, we'll move forward with this, Mr. Chairman, with the conditions approved by the hearing examiner.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Hammond. Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Thank you. Next case.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sharam Badamchian from the section of zoning.
This request is to amend an existing plan development that was approved for a mini warehouse, mini storage. They are amending the schedule of uses, building height, and the square footage of the building. Hearing examiner heard this case and recommended approval subject to condition. And there was one participant of record for this case.
Great, thank you. Any questions for staff at this time? No. Would the applicant wish to address the board before we call public comment?
Good morning, Russell Schropp on behalf of the applicant. We're in agreement with the hearing examiner recommendation. If there's any questions, we're here to answer them. And if there's any public participation, I'd like the opportunity for a rebuttal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, we'll go to the participants' record. We have one with Mark Abellini. He left, so I guess he wasn't going to stay for that one. Okay, we'll come back to the board for an action.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval of the hearing examiner recommendation.
We have a
Belli,
motion.
second that.
We have a second, Commissioner Wang. Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Thank you.
The next case before you today is REZ 2022-8, titled the Gladiolus Mixed Use Project. The case seeks to rezone approximately 31.91 acres in the mixed use overlay from commercial plan development to C2, which is a conventional commercial zoning district. The hearing examiner did recommend approval with conditions, just approval, and there was one participant of record. Staff and the applicant are here with any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you. Any questions for staff at this time? Would the applicant wish to address the board? Good morning.
Good morning. For the record, Jenna Persons-Malika, Strayhorn and Persons, on behalf of the applicant. We are in full agreement with the hearing examiner's recommendation, and we appreciate working with staff on this project and moving it forward. The record contains competent substantial evidence to support approval of the rezoning today, and we respectfully request the board approve this request. We have the team here to answer any questions that you may have, and should there be any testimony from the public, we would ask for time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant at this time? We'll call the first participant record, Sarah Spector. Is Sarah Spector here? No public comment. We'll come back to the board for action.
Gladly will move the item.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any objection? No objection. Motion carries. Thank you. Next and last case.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brandon Dunn here with the Lee County Planning Section. Here this morning to talk about the transmittal hearing for CPA 2021-15, Greenwell State Road 31. The original request for this plan amendment was to change the future land use category on 76.82 acres from rural to outlined suburban. The allowable density would change from 1 unit an acre to 3 units an acre, and it would remove the non-urban commercial limitations that the Lee plan contains. The request also includes adding the subject property to the future water service area and amending Table 1B to make sure the additional population allowed by that future land use change will be accommodated. Staff took this to the LPA last month. The case received a recommendation 3-2 to transmit. Some of the comments that came up at the LPA identified that this sort of created a hole in the donut, or a single property in this area that would be changed to outlying suburban as opposed to the rural. So staff took a look and analyzed the adjacent properties and is recommending to include the 15 adjacent properties that are between State Road 31 and the conservation easement that you can see up there on the screen. It would change the future land use category of 168.71 additional acres from rural to outlying suburban. The 13.6 acres of wetlands would remain wetlands. Property owners were sent notification via certified mail on September 6. We can enter those into the record here. The impacts of the additional analysis creates an increase of 337 dwelling units. There would be no change to the amount of commercial square footage, and that's based on existing policy 6.1.2, which allows essentially a non-urban treatment of the square footage of commercial uses along this stretch of road here. There were no changes to the sewer and water facility impacts based on that analysis, essentially because commercial requires a lot more sewer and water service than 3 dwelling units in acre would. And for traffic, it increases 31 trips for PM peak hour in the PM peak hour condition. The proposed or recommended amendments, as recommended by staff, allow for development with a mixture of uses of housing types. This is consistent with policies 29.1.2, 27.1.3, and 29.2.1. It allows for connection to LCU potable water. This is consistent with 126.1.4. The properties have access to infrastructure and services consistent with Goal 2 and Policy 1.1.6. And appropriate mitigation will be conditioned during the rezoning to address development within the coastal high hazard. That's consistent with Policy 101.1.4. I also want to add that the additional 15 properties that are not part of the subject, that were not part of the original request and are not part of the concurrent rezoning, they would have to also identify or demonstrate consistency with Policy 101.4. That could be done through their own zoning action or through a development order action if they choose a development scheme that doesn't require a rezoning. And going back to that, the same would also be true for addressing any FEMA issues. Those are addressed at the time of zoning and the time of development order. In conclusion, staff recommends the staff recommendation be transmitted to the state reviewing agencies. These amendments accommodate mixed-use development and allow for a variety of housing types. They allow for connection to water and sewer public infrastructure. And as I said, we recommend transmittal. Staff and the applicant is here for questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions this time?
Chairman, I am abstaining from voting on CPA 2021-0015 due to a conflict of interest. My family and I own the subject property. I will file the Form 8B with the minutes office and recuse myself.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Green. Any questions for staff at this time on this application? No. Would the applicant wish to address the board?
Thank you. For the record, Ken Galander on behalf of the applicant. First off, in conclusion, really, Brandon did an excellent job of explaining where we started and where we've ended up here, but being consistent with the lead plan, we fully concur with the staff report and recommendation with and no objection to the inclusion of those additional properties along the corridor. And we respectfully request the Board of County Commissioners transmit the proposed amendment. Our team is here to answer any questions and obviously the opportunity for any rebuttal if that opportunity arises.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay. And thank you, staff, for all your work on this. This has been about 12 years in making this whole corridor. If you've not been up there lately, what the Charlotte County's done up to the county line, this is amazing. You know, it's a quarter mile of this property. There's a shopping center already. So thank you for recognizing the need for the infrastructure there. Okay, this time we'll take public comment on this item. Any public comment? Please come forward. If you could state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Stephen Brodkin. I live on Durrance Road in North Fort Myers. I'm here representing concerned citizens of Bayshore community and Women for a Better Lee. We had a prepared statement, which I sent and you've probably seen. I had two quick questions at the beginning. When I was on the LPA and we were told that when there was a substantial change to a lead plan amendment after the LPA hearing, that it had to go back to the LPA for a recommendation. This didn't seem to happen in this case when staff added 189 acres to this application. So, and maybe that's up to the county attorney to address, but whether that should go back to the LPA for a substantial change in the application. The other question is whether the property owners, especially those along Old Rodeo Road, were informed of land use change that they will then incur if this goes through. Because it means even if they don't want to do anything with their property and just have a residence there, that what's adjacent to them could be largely different than what is allowed now. And I don't see any evidence that they were informed that the land use change includes them. At any rate, from our position, the plan presented for this Greenwell State Route 31 mixed-use development is not feasible because of, when you consider the relocation of State Road 31 to the east, and so Mr. Greenwell is going to lose a significant portion of his property. So we feel that under the current Lee plan, the allowed 100,000 square foot of commercial space and the dwelling units allowed are appropriate for that property without any land use change. We don't understand how Lee County can add 189 acres to Mr. Greenwell's request without any application from the current property owners. We don't see any evidence that the affected property owners have given written approval for their land use change. Can Lee County change a property owner's land use to a more intensive category without their informed consent is a question we have. Are those property homeowners on Old Rodeo Drive aware of the high-intensity development that could occur next to their homes because of this land use change? Most of the 265 acres that staff is recommending to change to outlying suburban lies within the special flood hazard area, also called the FEMA floodplain, according to the flood zones page on Lee County government website. Does Lee County have no concern with increasing development intensity within highly flood-prone areas? We feel it's poor planning considering climate change and sea level rise, does not consider the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and businesses there that will be there. We feel we should be reducing development on intensity in those areas as required by 5.1.2.
Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, we recommend not approval.
Any other public comment at this time on this last case? We'll come back to the board. Would the applicant wish to address the board after public comment? Okay, we'll come back to the board for an action, please.
Mr. Chairman, may I just ask, just for the record, so that everybody gets a chance, can we have our county attorney respond to some of the things that were said?
Sure, yes. Michael?
Good morning, Commissioners. The couple points, yes, the board is authorized to change the designation of any property it should choose, pending obviously the impacts of potential Burt Harris and other elements of Florida law. Your action, if you approve staff's recommendation to transmit the proposed amendments, will not impact the development rights or the property rights of the individuals that are being added. In regards to the letters that Mr. Dunn indicated today, they're on the record. They were certified mail to the property owners, identifying that their property would be a part of the staff's recommendation and would change their future land use designation to a more intense designation. I'm not going to read that into the record, but it is part of the record now. With regards to sending this back to the LPA, these are in reference to comments made at the LPA. We'd be in a constant loop if that was the actual requirement. These are recommendations by staff after hearing comments during a public hearing, and the board has the ability to amend applications as they go forward to address public comment. That's the whole point of the public hearing process. So the county attorney's office supports staff's recommendation to include the additional properties for the reasons stated in the staff report, and ultimately we have provided the notice beyond what's required under state law to add these properties.
Thank you for that legal clarification.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Mr. Chairman, then with the legal clarification we've gotten and just the very thorough staff report that, really encompasses why this makes sense, I'll move approval of the item.
We have a motion.
I will second that.
We have a second. Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Thank you. And that was our last case, and we are adjourned. Thank you.